The wind howls with an air so frigid and crisp that it chills you to your very bones. Bundled up next to the fire, you think about what is to come. You're the last of your group. The rest perished along the journey to survive. And you managed to make it a while longer, but what's the point anymore? As you lie down to rest, you picture the faces of your fallen friends. For the first time in a while, you know what your future holds. You will visit them all, one last time, then join them in the long dark. So the challenge is, can you make it through this journey, even as the dead sleep? Hey guys, welcome back, and today we're finally going to be doing our second challenge guide video. We're talking about As the Dead Sleep today, arguably the hardest challenge in the game, and I personally think it is. Fortunately, this challenge doesn't have nearly as many unique mechanics as Escape the Darkwalker, so it'll be easier to cover the basic premise of it. We're going to cover the challenge in the following sections: the challenge, the route, world settings, and the strategy. So first, let's learn about the challenge. In As the Dead Sleep, your goal is to reach 5 grave markers across Great Bear without dying. There's a grave marker in the following locations: Maintenance Yard and Broken Railroad, Many Vista Falls and Hushed River Valley, Crystal Lake and Timberwolf Mountain, Ravine Basin and Ravine, and the Riken at Desolation Point. There is no time limit. As long as you reach all of the grave markers without dying, you complete the challenge. The route. In this challenge, you will always spawn at the Fallen Lighthouse in Blake Inlet. Because of this, you won't be able to deploy the rope from the upper section of the region to reach the ravine grave immediately. The only way to get out of the region is through Forlorn Muskeg, so we're heading that way first. From Forlorn Muskeg, we have 3 options. Go to Broken Railroad to get the grave there, and then go for the Hush River Valley grave. Head for the Hush River Valley grave, and then go for the Broken Railroad grave. Or go into Mystery Lake and tackle the graves in the eastern regions of Great Bear before doing Broken Railroad and Hush River Valley. Clearly, that last option is not good. It involves a lot of backtracking that will just waste your time and resources. So of the other 2, we're going to head to Broken Railroad first. It requires slightly less backtracking, and it's going to give you the chance to find some better gear before you head into Hushed River Valley, which can be extremely deadly if you get stuck in bad weather. So, we go into Broken Railroad, then back into Forlorn Muskeg, into Mystery Lake, and then Hushed River Valley. Once you've gotten the grave there, go back into Mountain Town and take the climbing route into Mystery Lake. Now we have another choice to make. The first option we have is to go to the Ravine grave, then Coastal Highway to Desolation Point for that grave, finishing it off at the Timberwolf Mountain grave. The second option we have is to once again get the Ravine grave first, then double back into Mystery Lake to go to the Carter Hydro Dam into Pleasant Valley, get the Timberwolf Mountain grave, and then head to Desolation Point for the final grave at the Riken. Our final option here is to leave the Ravine grave for last, going to Timberwolf Mountain first through Pleasant Valley, then to the Riken, and finally the Ravine. Of these options, I least recommend leaving the Ravine grave for last. If you do leave that one for last, you'll end up having to backtrack through either Coastal Highway or Pleasant Valley, 2 massive regions. When I played this challenge, I went to the Ravine and then to Timberwolf Mountain, but if you want to have 0 backtracking, then going to the Riken before Timberwolf Mountain is definitely the best way to go. But either of those 2 options are good and won't differ much in terms of distance. Once you have decided, you'll know your final route. World settings. This challenge has a lot of unique settings that you're going to need to know before attempting it. The world is set at Interloper difficulty, so the weather, temperature, wildlife aggression, and quantity of loot spawns is Interloper. But the loot tables are set to Stalker, so you'll find better stuff than you could in Interloper. In this challenge, all methods of recovering condition are disabled, except for using an emergency stim, which will instantly recover 15% of your survivor's condition. Because stims are the only method of recovering condition, they are set to be rarer than they typically would be on Stalker loot, so use them very wisely. Finally, a majority of prey wildlife will not spawn. You will never find deer, rabbits, or ptarmigans around Great Bear during this challenge. Moose will spawn, but they're best avoided as you likely won't be able to take it down. To counteract the lack of prey, where there is a chance for a carcass to spawn, it's almost guaranteed to spawn, so you can at least scavenge from those if you need to. The strategy. There's a lot to go over here, so brace yourself. The most important thing to understand in this challenge is that you will not restore condition without an emergency stim, so you have to avoid condition loss as much as possible. Upon starting the challenge, you will almost immediately start to struggle with hypothermia risk. If your warmth meter is at 0, you will lose 20% condition per in-game hour, which is a lot. You'll need to avoid freezing as much as possible, especially in the beginning when you have very little equipment and clothing. Our strategy to tackle this is reliant on our approach with fires and making the most of warming up bonuses. So to survive this challenge, it is crucial that you understand how the warming up bonus works. Some food items and drinks will say whether they are cold or hot. These items are capable of providing warming up bonuses. If you consume something that is hot, it'll provide a couple bonuses. First, it'll instantly restore a portion of your warmth meter. 20% if the item was a drink and slightly less for food. An important thing to note is, if the item you drank was rose hip or reishi tea, and your survivor didn't have any afflictions to be cured by those teas, then the restoration jumps to a whopping 40% of your warmth when drank. Because of this, you're going to want to collect rosehip and reishi mushrooms throughout the run to be able to capitalize off this mechanic and stay warm. The second part of the buff is a 50% reduction in warmth loss during the buff's duration. The final thing to note is that if you only consume part of the item, then you only receive part of the buff's duration. To get the full bonus, you need to consume the whole thing. Our approach with fires is all about the fire's heat. As you play through this challenge, you want to grab all of the fuel that you can, especially coal and fir or cedar firewood. You should only be starting a fire if you're about to start freezing. For the first half of the challenge, I recommend using the torch method to start fires. The torch method is where you use one match to light the torch, and then repeatedly use that torch to try and start a fire so that you avoid wasting matches. You'll eventually reach a point in this challenge where you have more than enough fire starters, and at that point, you can ditch the torch method if you want to. When you start a fire, you want to try and get the fire to the point where it's going to make your survivors' feels like temperature about 30 degrees Celsius. This will usually result in the fire lasting for a long time, but you're not going to be staying for the duration of the fire. The point of this fire is to warm you up as quickly as possible, because a blizzard could roll in at any point during this challenge, so you don't want to be outside longer than you have to. While you're waiting for your warmth to reach full, you should be doing two things. First is preparing food or melting/boiling any water that you need, and the second is warming up all of your teas. You don't need to put items in a cooking slot to warm them up, so they just have to be dropped close by to a fire, so both of these things can be done simultaneously. As soon as you have full warmth, leave the fire, taking torches if you so choose. In the beginning of the challenge, it can be very helpful to grab a lot of torches from your fire and carry them with you, chaining them together. This is because carrying a lit torch provides a plus 3 degrees Celsius bonus to your temperature, and every little bit of warmth helps. If the path you take includes an indoor area, you should always loot it and try to warm up a bit inside. But be careful about staying too long if you don't have the supplies to wait out a blizzard. The final thing about warmth is deciding when to use a warming up bonus. Hot drinks and food will become cold pretty quickly, but so will you, so don't use them too fast after leaving a fire. You should wait for your warmth meter to drop a little bit first so you can capitalize on the bonus's immediate warmth recovery. Now that we covered our plan to stay warm, let's talk about when we're going to be using emergency stims. Since the emergency stim is the only way for you to recover condition, and you're going to find very few of them, you should never use them unless your condition is low enough to benefit from the entire 15% restored condition. Additionally, it is important to keep in mind that the emergency stim will cause your survivor to become fully fatigued once its effects wear off, so you're going to need to plan it in a way where you can rest soon after using the stim to prevent losing condition to fatigue. I personally recommend using a stim before doing a rope climb if it's a long rope climb with a bed nearby. For example, on my run, I used a stim before the 2 rope climbs out of the basin in Mountain Town, which spits you out right at the farmhouse. Another good spot for this would be getting out of the ravine basin after reaching the grave. You can make it to the Carter Dam or the trailer by the transition in Coastal Highway relatively quickly after the stim was worn off, so you won't lose too much condition. The final thing we're going to be talking about with our strategy is how we're going to be tackling Hushed River Valley. Getting stuck out in a blizzard in this region could easily end even the best runs, so our goal is to be there as little as possible. When we enter Hushed River Valley, we're going to be heading down the path straight ahead and then follow it right, walking over 3 downed tree bridges, and then ending up on top of this boulder. Goat down the boulder, or find another way down if you're opposed to goating. There should be plenty of easy non-goating routes. Then take the left path when you reach the split at Many Falls Vista. Here you'll find the grave. Now turn around and follow the cliff wall to your left. Be very careful here as there is a bear that can roam this area. Follow that wall until you find the path up just before Stairsteps Lake, and take that path out of Hushed River Valley and back into Mountain Town where you'll be safe. Head into this trip with as little fatigue as possible and have coffees ready if you can. You want to be in and out as quickly as possible. Okay, that was a lot of information, so let's do a quick recap. It's incredibly important to prevent condition loss. The most pressing issue will be staying warm. Collect any firewood you find, as well as rose hips and reishi mushrooms so you can prepare teas to warm up. If you stop by an indoor area, step inside to loot and warm up. If you approach freezing while outside, create a fire and keep piling fuel on until it makes your survivors feels like temperature around 30 degrees Celsius. While the fire is going, cook food or prepare water, and heat up all of your teas. Don't stay longer than you need to. Wait to use the warming up bonuses until you've let your warmth meter drop enough to capitalize on the instant warmth recovery. Do not use your emergency stims unless your condition is low so you don't waste the condition recovery. Remember that the stim will make you fully fatigued, so use them in a spot where you won't lose the condition you just regained from fatigue. Follow the route that I gave you when going for the Hushed River Valley grave. Try to be as rested as possible with some coffees. Be in and out as quickly as you can. Finally, I'll add something new right here. Don't be afraid to sidetrack to loot high-value locations. For example, I highly recommend looting the Hunting Lodge and Broken Railroad after getting the Maintenance Yard grave. With all of that known, you're ready to tackle this challenge. So let's use all this knowledge and do a quick walkthrough of my run of the challenge. And Just to prove to you how good your odds will be with these strategies, I'll let you in on a little secret. When I attempted this challenge on stream, I went in completely blind. So I didn't know that you couldn't recover condition until I had already lost about 60% of it. So I was able to beat the challenge on my first try with essentially starting at 40% condition by using these strategies. So let's walk through it. I spawn in and first stop by the Canary Worker residences to warm up and grab all the coal that is around the destroyed houses. Then we head into Forlorn Muskeg, where I follow the left wall of the region to reach Broken Railroad, looting the old Spence family homestead on the way. Throughout all of this, I'm starting fires as soon as I approach freezing. Once in Broken Railroad, I head to the first grave, and then I loot the hunting lodge before heading back into the Muskeg and then into Mountain Town. I use my first stim to get up the rope climbs here and then rest in the farmhouse. After that, I looted all of the houses in town on my way to the entrance to Hushed River Valley. I had a bedroll, so I was able to rest in the cave just before the exit into Hushed River Valley. After that, I went in and got the grave, starting a fire at the grave to warm up and then quickly got back out. Then I moved through Mountain Town again, heading for the trail to Mystery Lake, looting all of the houses along the way and the Orca gas station. Once in Mystery Lake, I loot trappers, the camp office, and then go into the ravine to get the grave. I choose to go back through the ravine and loot the Carter Dam, and then head to the Timberwolf Mountain grave. After that, it was just a hop, skip, and a jump over to the Riken where I found the final grave. Wasn't so hard, right? It's all about discipline and being able to stay warm, and once you have a grasp on the world settings and challenges and how to manage them, it's actually pretty easy. Alright guys, you now know everything you need to be able to conquer this challenge. I hope that this video was helpful and you feel a little less intimidated by this daunting task. If you keep to the strategies and do what we talked about, then you'll easily be able to defeat the Long Dark's hardest challenge. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you liked the video, like the video. It helps out a lot, and leave a comment with any questions or comments you have. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.